Light for Doris Gratian. Midnight storm, trees walking off across the fields in fury, naked in the spark of lightning. I sit on the white porch, on the brown hanging cane chair, coffee in my hand, midnight storm, midsummer night. The past, friends and family, drift into the rain shower. Those relatives in my favorite slides, reshot from old minute photographs, so they now stand, complex, ambiguous, greeny on my wall. This is my uncle who turned up for his marriage on an elephant. He was a chaplain. This shy-looking man in the light jacket and tie was infamous. When he went drinking, he took the long, blonde, beautiful hair of his wife and put one end in the cupboard and locked it, leaving her tethered in an armchair. He was terrified of her possible adultery, and this way died peaceful, happy to the end. My grandmother, who went to a dance in a muslin dress with fireflies captured and embedded in the cloth, shining and witty. This calm, beautiful face organized wild acts in the tropics. She hid the milkman in her house after he had committed murder, and at the trial was thrown out of the court for making jokes at the judge. Her son became a QC. This is my brother at 6, with his cousin and his sister, and Pam DeVos, who fell on a penknife and lost her eye. My Aunt Christie, she knew Harold Macmillan was a spy, communicating with her through pictures in the newspapers. Every picture she believed asked her to forgive him, his hound eyes pleading. Her husband, Uncle Fitzroy, a doctor in Ceylon, had a memory sharp as scalpels into his 80s, though I never bothered to ask him about anything, interested then more in the latest recordings of Bobby Darin. And this is my mother with her brother Noel in fancy dress. They are 7 and 8 years old, a hand-colored photograph. It is the earliest picture I have, the one I love most. A picture of my kids at Halloween has the same contact and laughter. My uncle dying at 68, and my mother a year later dying at 68. She told me about his death, and the day he died, his eyes clearing out of illness, as if seeing right through the room, the hospital, and she said he saw something so clear and good his whole body for a moment became youthful, and she remembered when she sewed badges on his track shirts. Her voice joyous in telling me this, her face light and clear. My Firefly grandmother also dying at 68. These are the fragments I have of them tonight in this storm, the dogs restless on the porch. They were all laughing, crazy, and vivid in their prime. At a party, my drunk father tried to explain a complex operation on chickens and managed to kill them all in the process. The guests having dinner an hour later, while my father slept, and the kids watched the servants clean up the litter of beaks and feathers on the lawn. These are their fragments, all I remember, wanting more knowledge of them. In the mirror and in my kids, I see them in my flesh. Wherever we are, they parade in my brain, and the expanding stories connect to the gray, grainy pictures on the wall as they hold their drinks or 20 years later hold grandchildren posed with favorite dogs. Coming through the light, the electricity, which the storm destroyed an hour ago, a tree going down by the highway, so that now inside the kids play dominoes by candlelight, and out here the thick rain static, the spark of my match to a cigarette. And the trees across the fields leaving me, distinct, lonely in their own knife scars and cow-chewed bark, frozen in the jagged light as if snapped in their run, the branch arms waving to what was a second ago the dark sky, when in truth, like me, they haven't moved an inch from me. Dates. It becomes apparent that I miss great occasions. My birth was heralded by nothing but the anniversary of Winston Churchill's marriage. No monuments bled, no instruments agreed on a specific weather. It was a seasonal insignificance. I consoled myself with my mother's 8th month. While she sweated out her pregnancy in Ceylon, a servant ambling over the lawn with a tray of iced drinks, a few friends visiting her to placate her shape, and I drinking the lifelines. Wallace Stevens sat down in Connecticut, a glass of orange juice at his table, so hot he wore only shorts, and on the back of a letter began to write, "The well-dressed man with a beard." That night, while my mother slept, her significant belly cooled by the bedroom fan, Stevens put words together that grew to sentences and shaved them clean and shaped them, the page suddenly becoming thought where nothing had been. His head making his hand move where he wanted, and he saw his hand was saying, "The mind is never finished. No, never." And I in my mother's stomach was growing, as were the flowers outside the Connecticut windows. Early morning, Kingston to Gananoque. The 20 miles to Gananoque, with tangled, dust-blue grass, burned and smelling burned along the highway, is land too harsh for picnics. Deep in the fields behind stiff dirt fern, nature breeds the unnatural. Escaping cows canter white, then black and white, along the median, forming out of mist. Crows pick at animal accidents, with swoops left meals, blistered groundhogs, stripped snakes, to arch behind a shield of sun. Somewhere in those fields, they are shaping new kinds of women. Letters and Other Worlds. For there was no more darkness for him, and, no doubt like Adam before the fall, he could see in the dark. Alfred Jarry. My father's body was a globe of fear. His body was a town we never knew. He hid that he had been where we were going. His letters were a room he seldom lived in. In them the logic of his love could grow. My father's body was a town of fear. He was the only witness to its fear dance. He hid where he had been that we might lose him. His letters were a room his body scared. He came to death with his mind drowning. On the last day he enclosed himself in a room with 2 bottles of gin, later fell the length of his body so that brain blood moved to new compartments that never knew the wash of fluid, and he died in minutes of a new equilibrium. His early life was a terrifying comedy, and my mother divorced him again and again. He would rush into tunnels, magnetized by the white eye of trains, and once, gaining instant fame, managed to stop a Perahara in Ceylon, the whole procession of elephants, dancers, local dignitaries, by falling dead drunk onto the street. As a semi-official and semi-white at that, the act was seen as a crucial turning point in the Home Rule movement and led to Ceylon's independence in 1948. My mother had done her share too, her driving so bad she was stoned by villagers whenever her car was recognized. For 14 years of marriage, each of them claimed he or she was the injured party. Once on the Colombo docks, saying goodbye to a recently married couple, my father, jealous at my mother's articulate emotion, dove into the waters of the harbor and swam after the ship, waving farewell. My mother, pretending no affiliation, mingled with the crowd back to the hotel. Once again he made the papers, though this time my mother, with a note to the editor, corrected the report, saying he was drunk rather than broken-hearted at the parting of friends. The married couple received both editions of the Ceylon Times when their ship reached Aden. And then in his last years, he was the silent drinker, the man who once a week disappeared into his room with bottles and stayed there until he was drunk and until he was sober. There, speeches, head dreams, apologies, the gentle letters were composed. With the clarity of architects, he would write of the row of blue flowers his new wife had planted, the plans for electricity in the house, how my half-sister fell near a snake and it had awakened and not touched her. Letters in a clear hand of the most complete empathy, his heart widening and widening and widening to all manner of change in his children and friends, while he himself edged into the terrible acute hatred of his own privacy, till he balanced and fell the length of his body, the blood entering the empty reservoir of bones, the blood surging in his head without metaphor. King Kong meets Wallace Stevens. Take 2 photographs, Wallace Stevens and King Kong. Is it significant that I eat bananas as I write this? Stevens is portly, benign, a white brush cut, striped tie, businessman, but for the dark, thick hands, the naked brain, the thought in him. Kong is staggering, lost in New York streets again, a spawn of annoyed cars at his toes. The mind is nowhere. Fingers are plastic, electric under the skin. He's at the call of Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer. Meanwhile, W.S. in his suit is thinking chaos, is thinking fences. In his head, the seeds of fresh pain, his exorcising, the bellow of locked blood. The hands drain from his jacket, pose in the murderer's shadow. The gate in his head, for Victor Coleman. Victor, the shy mind, revealing the faint scars, colored strata of the brain, not clarity but the sense of shift. A few lines, the tracks of thought. Landscape of busted trees, the melted tires in the sun, stands fishbowl with a book inside, turning its pages like some sea animal, camouflaging itself. The typeface clarity going slow blonde in the sunful water. My mind is pouring chaos in nets onto the page. A blind lover, don't know what I love till I write it out. And then from Gibson's Your Letter, with a blurred photograph of a gull, caught vision, the stunning white bird, an unclear stir. And that is all this writing should be then. The beautiful formed things caught at the wrong moment, so they are shapeless, awkward, moving to the clear. Burning Hells, for Chris and Fred. So he came to write again in the Burnt Hill region north of Kingston. A cabin with mildew spreading down walls, bullfrogs on either side of him. Hanging his lantern of shell vaponis strip on a hook in the center of the room, he waited a long time, opened the Hilroy writing pad, yellow big pen. Every summer he believed would be his last. This schizophrenic season change, June to September, when he deviously thought out plots across the character of his friends. Sometimes barren as fear going nowhere, or in habit, meaningless as tap water. One year maybe he would come and sit for 4 months and not write a word down, would sit and investigate colors, the insects in the room with him. What he brought: a typewriter, tins of ginger ale, cigarettes, a copy of Strangelove, of The Intervals, a postcard of Rousseau's The Dream. His friend's words were strict as lightning, unclothing the bark of a tree, a shaved hook. The postcard was a test pattern by the window, through which he saw growing scenery. Eventually the room was a time machine for him. He closed the rotting door, sat down, thought pieces of history, The first girl who in a park near his school put a warm hand into his trousers, unbuttoning and finally catching the spill across her wrist, he in the maze of her skirt. She later played the piano when he had tea with the parents. He remembered that, surprised. He had forgotten for so long. Under raincoats in the park on hot days. The summers were layers of civilization in his memory. They were old photographs he didn't look at anymore, for girls in them were chubby, not as perfect as in his mind, and his ungovernable hair was shaved to the edge of skin. His friends leaned on bicycles, were 16 and tried to look 21, the cigarettes too big for their faces. He could read those characters easily, undisguised as wedding pictures. He could hardly remember their names, though they had talked all day, exchanged styles, and like dogs on a lawn, hung around the houses of girls. Sex a game of targets, of throwing firecrackers at a couple in a field, locked in handmade orgasms. Singing dramatically in someone's ear along with the record, "How do you think I feel? You know our love's not real. The one you're mad about is just a gadabout. How do you think I feel?" He saw all that complex tension the way his children would. There is one picture that fuses the 5 summers. 8 of them are leaning against a wall, arms around each other, looking into the camera and the sun, trying to smile at the unseen adult photographer, trying against the glare to look 21 and confident. The summer and friendship will last forever. Except one who was eating an apple. That was him, oblivious to the significance of the moment. Now he hungers to have that arm around the next shoulder. The wretched apple is fresh and white. Since he began burning hills, the shell strip has taken effect. A wasp is crawling on the floor, tumbling over, its motor fanatic. He has smoked 5 cigarettes. He has written slowly and carefully, with great love and great coldness. When he finishes, he will go back, hunting for the lies that are obvious. White Dwarfs. This is for people who disappear, for those who descend into the code and make their room a fridge for Superman, who exhaust costume and bones that could perform flight, who shave their morals so raw they can tear themselves through the eye of a needle. This is for those people that hover and die in the ether peripheries. There is my fear of no words, of falling without words over and over, of mouthing the silence. Why do I love most among my heroes those who sail to that perfect edge where there is no social fuel? Release of sandbags to understand their altitude. That silence of the third cross, third man hung so high and lonely we don't hear him say his pain, say his unbrotherhood. What is he to do with the smell of ladies? Can they eat off his skeleton of pain? The Gurkhas in Malaya cut the tongues of mules so they were silent beasts of burden in enemy territories. After such cruelty, what could they speak of anyway? And Dashiell Hammett in success suffered conversation and moved the perfect white between the words. This white that can grow is fridge, bed, is an egg, most beautiful when unbroken, where what we cannot see is growing in all the colors we cannot see. There are those burned out stars who implode into silence after parading in the sky. After such choreography, what would they wish to speak of anyway? Farre Off. There are the poems of Campion I never saw till now, and Wyatt, who loved with the best. And suddenly I want 16th century women around me, devious, politic, aware of step ladders to the king. Tonight I am alone with dogs and lightning, aroused by Wyatt's talk of women who step naked into his bedchamber. Moonlight and barnlight constant. Lightning every second minute. I have on my thin blue parka and walk behind the asses of the dogs who slide under the gate and sense cattle deep in the fields. I look out into the dark pasture, past where even the moonlight stops. My eyes are against the ink of campion. Walking to Bellrock. Two figures in deep water. Their frames truncated at the stomach glide along the surface. Depot Creek. 100 years ago, lumber being driven down this river tore and shoveled and widened the banks into Bellrock, down past bridges to the mill. The two figures are walking as if half sunk in a grey road, their feet tentative, stumbling on stone bottom. Landscapes underwater. What do the feet miss? Turtle, water snake, clam. What do the feet ignore and the brain not look at as two figures slide past George Grant's green immaculate fields, past the splash blood of cardinal flower on the bank? Rivers are a place for philosophy, but all thought is about the mechanics of this river, is about stones that twist your ankles, the hidden rocks you walk your knees into, feet in slow motion and brain and balanced arms, imagining the blind path of foot, underwater sun suddenly catching the almond-colored legs, the torn old Adidas tennis shoes we wear to walk the river into Bellrock. What is the conversation about for 3 hours on this winding, twisted, evasive river to town? What was the conversation about all summer? Stan and I laughing, joking, going summer crazy as we lived against each other. To keep warm, we submerge. Sometimes just our heads, decapitated, glide on the dark glass. There is no metaphor here. We are aware of the heat of the water, coldness of the rain, smell of mud in certain sections that farts when you step on it, mud never walked on so you can't breathe. My God, you can't breathe this air, and you swim fast, your feet off the silt of history that was there when the logs went leaping down for the Rathburn Timber Company, when those who stole logs had to leap right out of the country if caught. But there is no history or philosophy or metaphor with us. The problem is the toughness of the Adidas shoe, its 3 stripes gleaming like fish decoration. The story is Russell's arm waving out of the green of a field. The plot of the afternoon is to get to Bellrock, through rapids, falls, stink water, and reach the island where beer and a towel wait for us. That night, there is not even pain in our newly used muscles, not even the puckering of flesh, and little to tell except you won't believe how that river winds, and when you don't see the feet, you concentrate on the feet. And all the next day trying to think what we didn't talk about. Where was the criminal conversation? Broken sentences lost in the splash, in wind. Stan, my crazy summer friend, why are we both going crazy? Going down to Bellrock, recognizing home by the color of barns which tell us north, south, west, and otherwise lost in miles and miles of rain, in the middle of this century, following the easy, fucking, stupid plot to town. Pigglass. Bonjour. This is Pigglass, a piece of cloudy sea, nosed out of the earth by swine and smoothed into pebble. Run it across your cheek, it will not cut you. And this is my hand, a language which was buried for years. Touch it against your stomach. The pig glass, I thought, was the buried eye of Portland Township, slow, faded history waiting to be grunted up. There is no past until you breathe on such green glass, rub it over your stomach and cheek. The Meeks family used this section years ago to bury tin, crockery, forks, dog tags, and each morning pigs ease up that ocean, redeeming it again into the possibilities of rust. One morning I found a whole axle, another day a hand crank. But this is pig glass, tested with narrow teeth and let lie. The morning's green present, Portland Township jewelry. There is the band from the ankle of a pigeon, a weathered bill from the Bellrock cheese factory, letters in 1925 to a dead mother I disturbed in the room above the tractor shed, journals of family love, servitude to farm weather, a work glove in a cardboard box creased flat and hard like a flower, a bottle thrown by loggers out of a wagon past midnight explodes against rock. This green fragment has behind it the boom when glass tears free of its smoothness. Now once more smooth as knuckle, a tooth on my tongue. Comfort that bites through skin hides in the dark afternoon of my pocket. Snake shade, determined histories of glass. Late movies with Skyler. All week since he's been home, he has watched late movies, alone. Terrible one-star films, and then staggering through the dark house to his bed, waking at noon to work on the broken car he has come home to fix. 21 years old and restless, back from logging on Vancouver Island with men who get rid of crabs with Raid, 2 minutes bending over in agony and then into the showers. Last night I joined him for The Prisoner of Zenda, a film I saw 3 times in my youth and which no doubt influenced me morally. Hot coffee, bananas and cheese. We are ready at 11:30 for adventure. At each commercial, Sky breaks into midnight guitar practice, head down, playing loud and intensely, till the movie comes on and the music suddenly stops. Skyler's favorite hours when he's usually alone, cooking huge meals of anything in the frying pan, thumbing through advanced guitar like a Bible. We talk during the film and break into privacy during commercials, or get more coffee, or push the screen door open and urinate under the trees. Laughing at the dilemmas of 1920 heroes, suggestive lines, cutaways to court officials who raise their eyebrows at least 4 inches when the lovers kiss. Only the anarchy of the evil Rupert of Hensaw is appreciated. And still somehow by 1:30 we are moved, as Stuart Granger, girlless and countryless, rides into the sunset with his morals and his horse. The perfect world is over. Banana peels, orange peels, ashtrays, guitar books. 2 a.m. We stagger through into the slow black rooms of the house. I lie in bed fully awake. The darkness breathes to the pace of a dog snoring. The film is replayed to sounds of an intricate blues guitar. Skyler is Rupert, then the hero. He will leave in a couple of days for Montreal or the Maritimes. In the movies of my childhood, the heroes, after skilled swordplay and moral victories, leave with absolutely nothing to do for the rest of their lives. Bear hug. Griffin calls to come and kiss him goodnight. I yell, okay, finish something I'm doing, then something else. Walk slowly round the corner to my son's room. He is standing, arms outstretched, waiting for a bear hug, grinning. Why do I give my emotion an animal's name? Give it that dark squeeze of death. This is the hug which collects all his small bones and his warm neck against me. The thin, tough body under the pajamas locks to me like a magnet of blood. How long was he standing there, like that, before I came? Tin roof. You stand still for 3 days for a piece of wisdom, and everything falls to the right place or wrong place. You speak, don't know whether seraph or bitch flutters at your heart, and look through windows for cue cards blazing in the sky. The solution. This last year, I was sure I was going to die. The geography of this room I know so well tonight. I could rise in the dark, sit at the table, and write without light. I am here in the country of warm rains, a small cabin, a glass, wood, tin bucket on the Pacific rim. Geckos climb the window to peer in, and all day the tirade, pale blue waves touch the black shore of volcanic rock and fall to pieces here. How to arrive at this drowning on the edge of sea? How to drive the Hana road, he said. One hand on the beer, one hand on your thigh, and one eye for the road. Waves leap to this cliff all day, and in the evening lose their pale blue. He rises from the bed as wind from 3 directions falls, takes his place on the peninsula of sheets, which also loses color. Stands in the loose green kimono by a large window and gazes through gecko, past the deadfall into sea. The unknown magic he loves throws himself into, the blue heart. Tell me all you know about bamboo, growing wild, green, growing up into soft arches in the temple ground, the traditions, driven through hands, through the heart during torture. And most of all, this small bamboo pipe, not quite horizontal, that drips every 10 seconds into a shallow bowl. I love this, being here, not a word, just the faint fall of liquid, the boom of an iron Buddhist bell in the heart, rapid as ceremonial bamboo. A man buying wine, Rainier beer at the store, would he be satisfied with this? Cold showers, electric skillet, Red River on TV. Oh, he could be. Do you want to be happy and right? He happens to love the stark luxury of this place. No armchairs, a fridge of beer and mangoes, precipitation. To avoid a story, the refusal to move. All our narratives of sleep, a mild rumble to those inland. Illicit pockets of the kimono, heart like a sleeve. The cabin, its tin roof, a wind-run radio, catches the noise of the world. He focuses on the gecko, almost transparent body, how he feels now, everything passing through him like light. In certain mirrors he cannot see himself at all. He is joyous and breaking down, the tug over the cliff. What protects him is a warmth in the sleeve. That is all, really. We go to the stark places of the earth and find moral questions everywhere. Will John Wayne and Montgomery Clift take their cattle to Missouri or Kansas? Tonight I lean over the Pacific and its blue wild silk, ringed by creatures who, my sudden movement, who say nothing else. There are those who are in, and there are those who look in. Tiny leather toes hug the glass. On the porch, thin ceramic chimes ride wind off the Pacific, bells of the sea. I do not know the name of large orange flowers which thrive on salt air, lean half drunk against the steps. Untidy banana trees, thick moss on the cliff, and then the plunge to black volcanic shore. It is impossible to enter the sea here except in a violent way. How we have moved from thin ceramic to such destruction. All night the touch of wave on volcano. There was a woman who clutched my hair like a shaken child. The radio whistles round a lost wavelength. All night slacky music and the bird whistling do we know, words and music entangled in pebble ocean static. The wild sea and her civilization, the league of the divine wind and traditions of death. Remember those women in movies who wept into the hair of their dead men? All this noise at your neck, heart clapping like green bamboo, this earring which has flipped over and falls into the pool of your ear, the waves against black stone that was 1,000-year-old burning red river could not reach us. Cabin, Hana, this flower of wood in which we rose out of the blue sheets, you thin as horizon, reaching for lamp or book, my shirt, hungry for everything about the other. Here we steal places to stay as we steal time, never too proud to beg, even if we never see the other's grin and star again. There is nothing resigned in this briefness. We swallow complete. I will know everything here. This cup, balanced on my chest, my eye witnessing the petal drop away from its order, your arm, forever. Precarious in all our fury. Every place has its own wisdom. Come, time we talked about the sea, the long waves, trapped around islands. There are maps now whose portraits have nothing to do with the surface. Remember the angels, floating compasses, portal and atlases so complex we looked down and never knew which was earth, which was sea? The way birds the color of prairie, confused by the sky, flew into the earth. Remember those women who claimed dead miners the color of the coal they drowned in? The bathymetric maps startle. Visions of the ocean floor, troughs, naked blue deserts, Ganges cone, the Mascarene basin. So one is able now, in ideal situations, to plot a stroll to new continents, doing the Berriman walk. And beneath the sea there are these giant scratches of pain, the markings of some perfect animal who has descended, burying itself under the glossy ballroom. Or they have to do with ascending, what we were, the earth creatures longing for horizon. I know one thing, our sure, non-sliding civilized feet, our small leather shoes, did not make them. Ah, you should be happy and right. I want the passion which puts your feet on the ceiling, this fist to smash forward, take this silk somehow, out of the rooms of poetry. Listen, solitude, X wrote, is not an absolute. It is just a resting place. Listen, in the end, the pivot from angel to witch depends on small things. This animal, the question, are you happy? No, I'm not happy. Lucky though. Rainy night talk. Here's to the overlooked nipples of Spain, brown Madrid Orioles, kneecaps of Ohio girls, kneeling in the palms of men, waiting to be thrown high into the clouds of a football stadium. Here's to the long-legged woman from Kansas, whispering good morning at 5, dazed in balcony moonlight. All that drizzle the night before, walking through the rain, slam her car door, and wrote my hunger out. The balcony like an entrance to a city of suicides. Here's to the long legs driving home in more and more rain, weaving like a one-sided, lonely conversation over the mountains. And what were you carrying in your head that night, Missouri, Miss Kansas, while I put my hands sweating on the cold window on the edge of the trough of this city? Breaking down after logical rules. Couldn't be the hit-and-run driver. I wanted Frank Sinatra. I was thinking blue pajamas. I was brought up on movies and song. I could write my suite of poems for Bogart, drunk, 6 months after the departure at Casablanca. I see him lying under the fan at the Slavinsky Bazaar Hotel, and soon he will see the truth, the stupidity of his gesture. He'll see it in the space between the whirling metal. Stupid fucker, he says to himself, stupid fucker, and knocks the bottle leaning against his bare stomach onto the sheet. Gin stems out like a four-leaf clover. I used to be lucky, he says. I had white suits, black friends who played the piano, and that was a movie I saw just once. What about Burt Lancaster limping away at the end of Trapeze? Born in 1943, and I saw that 6 times. I grew up knowing I could never fly. That's me, you, educated at the Bijou. And don't ask me about my interpretation of Madame George. That's a 9-minute song, a 2-hour story. So how do we discuss the education of our children? Teach them to be romantics, to veer towards the sentimental? Toss them into the air like Tony Curtis and make them do the triple somersault through all these complexities and commandments? Oh, Rilke, I want to sit down calm like you, or pace the castle, avoiding the path of the cook, Carlo, who believes down to his turnip soup that you speak in the voice of the devil. I want the long lines my friend spoke of, that bamboo which sways muttering like wooden teeth in the slim volume I have, with its childlike drawing of Duino Castle. I have circled your book for years, like a wave combing the green hair of the sea, kept it with me, your name a password in the alley. I always wanted poetry to be that. But this solitude brings no wisdom, just 2-day-old food in the fridge, certain habits you would not approve of. If I said all of your name now, it would be the movement of the tide you soared over so your private angel could become part of a map. I'm too often busy with things I wish to get away from. And I want the line to move slowly now, slowly, like a careful drunk across the street, no cars in the vicinity, but in his fearful imagination. How can I link your flowing name to geckos or a slice of octopus, though there are Rainier beer cans magically on the windowsill? And still your lovely letters, January 1912 near Trieste, the car you were driven in at a snail's pace, through Provence, wanting to go into chrysalis, to live by the heart and nothing else, or your guilt, I howled at the moon with all my heart and put the blame on the dogs. I can see you sitting down, the suspicious cook asleep. So it is just you and the machinery of the night, that foul beast that sucks and drains, leaping over us, sweeping our determination away with its tail. Us and the coffee, all the small charms we invaded with. As at midnight we remember the color of the dogwood flower growing like a woman's sex outside the window. I wanted poetry to be walnuts in their green cases, but now it is the sea, and we let it drown us, and we fly to it released by giant catapults of pain, loneliness, deceit, and vanity.
Aquellos que han utilizado las siguientes técnicas de
afin de
seducción:
libérer leur conscience
conversación
intérieure
superficial en una
et
convención de
éprouver dans
halconeros,
l'intimité du
entrando en un
foyer
balneario
les
disfrazado de
vols
migrista
passagers de
británico,
l'âme.
haciendo
Ceux qui, après
movimientos
s'être
eróticos de la
baignés, trouvent
pelvis
que
en los
l'eau qui
bastidores
dégoute de
durante
leurs
la escena de la
oreilles est une
tormenta del Rey
sensation
Lear,
érotique.
subrayando
Et
frases
les critiques
subjetivas
littéraires
en
qui
las
ont
prefacios
tenté
de
de traverser à la page la danse éliminatoire.
Elimination Dance.
Ceux qui sont allergiques à la mer.
Those who are allergic to the sea.
Ceux qui ont résisté à la perversité.
Those who have resisted depravity.
Uomini che si tagliano la barba un po' alla volta e che si fermano per fare fotografie.
Men who shave off beards in stages, pausing to take photographs.
Et toutes ces étoiles américaines du rock qui portaient pull de hockey des Toronto Maple Leafs.
American rock stars who wear Toronto Maple Leaf hockey sweaters.
那些到外国访问、丢失了掏耳朵棉棍头，而又无法解释他们的难题的人。
Those who, while visiting a foreign country, have lost the end of a Q-tip in their ear and have been unable to explain their problem.
Et ces messieurs qui ont placé un microphone au long du ventre d'une femme nue après le déjeuner et qui par la suite, après avoir considérablement ralenti le son, ont vendu ces bruissements comme étant le chant de baleine.
Gentlemen who have placed a microphone beside a naked woman's stomach after lunch and later, after slowing down the sound considerably, have sold these noises on the open market as whale songs.
所有的演员和诗人在表演时都对第一排的观众吐口水。
All actors and poets who spit into the first row while they perform.
Akármelyik vendég, aki megette a vendéglátó hiányzó kontaktlensét az édességgel együtt.
Any dinner guest who has consumed the host's missing contact lens along with the dessert.
Chiunque abbia avuto il sogno seguente. Uno si trova in una stazione della metropolitana di una città importante. In fondo vede una macchina automatica che dispensa caffè. Introduce due monete. Il sacro caldo scende giù ed il sangue viene versato in un calice.
Any person who has had the following dream. You are in a subway station of a major city. At the far end you see a coffee machine. You put in 2 coins. The Holy Grail drops down, then blood pours into the chalice.
Cualquier persona que se le haya perdido una muestra de orina en el correo.
Any person who has lost a urine sample in the mail.
任何一个不得不同所有的胖音乐家乘坐同一架电梯的人。
Anyone who has had to step into an elevator with all of the Irish Rovers.
Azok, akik kitöltöttek egy kétnyelvű és bizalmas disznók közvéleményi kutatást a Statistics Canadától.
Une enquête sur les ports strictement confidentielle.
Those who have filled in a bilingual and confidential pig survey from Statistics Canada.
Aquellos que se han engrapado accidentalmente.
Those who have accidentally stapled themselves.
Chiunque sia stato penetrato da uno delle giuble rosse.
Anyone who has been penetrated by a Mountie.
Qualsiasi professore universitario che abbia ballato con un ritaglio di cartone a grandezza naturale di Jean Genet.
Any university professor who has danced with a life-sized cardboard cutout of Jean Genet.
在野营商店无意中把自己锁进了睡袋的人。
Those who have unintentionally locked themselves within a sleeping bag at a camping goods store.
Cualquier mujer cuyo dispositivo intrauterino ha sonado el sistema de alarmas en el aeropuerto.
Any woman whose IUD has set off an alarm system at the airport.
Et ceux qui, après s'être baignés, trouvent que l'eau qui dégoute de leurs oreilles est une sensation érotique.
Those who, after a swim, find the sensation of water dribbling out of their ears erotic.
Uomini che non hanno mai toccato un whippet.
Men who have never touched a whippet.
Asszonyok, akik feladták a tangóharmonikát becsipett meleg miatt.
Women who give up the accordion because of pinched breasts.
那些醒来发现孔雀脚印穿过厨房的人。
Those who have woken to find the wet footprints of a peacock across their kitchen floor.
Cualquiera cuyas rodillas se han arruinado por actos sexuales en el elevador.
Anyone whose knees have been ruined as a result of performing sexual acts in elevators.
Et les critiques littéraires qui ont tenté de traverser à la nage l'Hellespont.
Literary critics who have swum the Hellespont.
Cualquier amante que al entrar en una florería en el Día de los Enamorados pidió un clítoris, queriendo pedir un clematis.
Any lover who has gone into a flower shop on Valentine's Day and asked for clitoris when he meant clematis.
Azok, akik véletlenül megtalálták a telefonszámokat szökszavú sértések vagy dicséretek alatt a Bay Street Bus Terminal toiletjába.
Those who have come across their own telephone numbers underneath terse insults or compliments in the washroom of the Bay Street bus terminal.
aquellos que han utilizado las siguientes técnicas de seducción.
Those who have used the following techniques of seduction.
Conversación superficial en una convención de halconeros.
Small talk at a falconry convention.
Entrando en un balneario disfrazado de novelista británico.
Entering a spa town disguised as Ford Madox Ford.
Haciendo movimientos eróticos de la pelvis entre bastidores durante la escena de la tormenta del Rey Lear.
Making erotic rotations of the pelvis backstage during the storm scene of King Lear.
Subrayando frases sugestivas en los prefacios de Joseph Conrad.
Underlining suggestive phrases in the prefaces of Joseph Conrad.
任何一个在法庭上为狗的性格作证的人，
Anyone who has testified as a character witness for a dog in a court of law.
任何一个在烈酒控制局嚎啕大哭的人，
Any person who has burst into tears at the Liquor Control Board. Anyone with pain. The hour of cowdust. It is the hour we move small in the last possibilities of light. Now the sky opens its blue vault. I thought this hour belonged to my children, bringing cows home, bored by duty, swinging a stick. But this focus of dusk out of dust is everywhere. Here by the Nile, the boats wheeling like massive half-drowned birds, and I gaze at water that dreams dust off my tongue. In this country, your mouth feels the way your shoes look. Everything is reducing itself to shape. Lack of light cools your shirt. Men step from barbershops, their skin alive to the air. All day, dust-covered granite hills, and now suddenly the Nile is flesh, an arm on a bed. In Indian miniatures, I cannot quite remember what this hour means. People were small, animals represented simply by dust they stamped into the air. All I recall of commentaries are abrupt, lovely sentences where the color of a bowl, a left foot stepping on a lotus, symbolize separation. Or stories of gods creating such beautiful women they themselves burned in passion and were reduced to ash. Women confided to pet parrots. Solitary men dreamed into the conch. So many graciously humiliated by the distance of rivers. The boat turns languid under the hunched passenger. Sails, ready for the moon, fill like a lung. There is no longer depth of perception. It is now possible for the outline of two boats to collide silently. Sweet like a crow, for Hetty Courier, 8 years old. The Sinhalese are beyond a doubt one of the least musical people in the world. It would be quite impossible to have less sense of pitch, line, or rhythm. Paul Bowles. Your voice sounds like a scorpion being pushed through a glass tube, like someone has just trodden a peacock, like wind howling in a coconut, like a rusty Bible, like someone pulling barbed wire across a stone courtyard, like a pig drowning, a vataka being fried, a bone shaking hands, a frog singing at Carnegie Hall. Like a crow swimming in milk, like a nose being hit by a mango, like the crowd at the Royal Thomson match, a womb full of twins, a pariah dog with a magpie in its mouth, like the midnight jet from Casablanca, like Air Pakistan curry. A typewriter on fire, like 100 papadongs being crunched, like someone uselessly trying to light matches in a dark room, the clicking sound of a reef when you put your head into the sea, a dolphin reciting epic poetry to a sleepy audience, the sound of a fan when someone throws brinjals at it, like pineapples being sliced in the Petah market, like Beetlejuice hitting a butterfly in midair. Like a whole village running naked onto the street and tearing their sarongs, like an angry family pushing a jeep out of the mud, like dirt on the needle, like 8 sharks being carried on the back of a bicycle, like 3 old ladies locked in the lavatory, like the sound I heard when having an afternoon sleep and someone walked through my room in ankle bracelets. The cinnamon peeler. If I were a cinnamon peeler, I would ride your bed and leave the yellow bark dust on your pillow. Your breasts and shoulders would reek. You could never walk through markets without the professional of my fingers floating over you. The blind would stumble, certain of whom they approached, though you might bathe under rain gutters, monsoon. Here on the upper thigh at this smooth pasture, neighbor to your hair, or the crease that cuts your back, this ankle. You will be known among strangers as a cinnamon peeler's wife. I could hardly glance at you before marriage, never touch you, your keen-nosed mother, your rough brothers. I buried my hands in saffron, disguised them over smoking tar, helped the honey gatherers. When we swam once, I touched you in water, and our bodies remained free. You could hold me and be blind of smell. You climbed the bank and said, "This is how you touch other women, the grass cutter's wife, the lime burner's daughter." And you searched your arms for the missing perfume, and knew. What good is it to be the lime burner's daughter, left with no trace, as if not spoken to in the act of love, as if wounded without the pleasure of a scar? You touched your belly to my hands in the dry air and said, "I am the cinnamon peeler's wife. Smell me." Some poems from Rock Bottom. The space in which we have dissolved, does it taste of us? Summer night came out of the water, climbed into my car and drove home. Got out of the car, still wet, towel around me, opened the gate and walked to the house. Disintegration of the spirit. No stars, leaf being eaten by moonlight. The small creatures who are blind, who travel with the aid of petite white horns, take over the world. Sound of a moth. The screen door in its suspicion allows nothing in, as I allow nothing in. The raspberries my son gave me, wild, cold, out of the fridge. A few I put in my mouth, some in my shirt pocket, and forgot. I sit here in a half-dark kitchen, the stain at my heart caused by this gift. La Belle Romance. Another deep night with the National Enquirer. Silence. Like the unseen arms of a bat, the book falls open to sadness, dead flowers, dead horses who carried lovers to a meeting. On my last walk through the kitchen, I see it. I lift huge arms of a cobweb out of the air and carry its why slowly to the porch as if alive, as if it was a wounded bird or some terrible camouflaged insect that could damage children. The distance between us and then this small map of stars, a concentrated ocean of the night. When lovers worship heavens, they are worshipping a lack of distance. My brother the moon, the lofty mattress of nebula, rash and spray of love. It is all as close as my palm on your body. So you, among pillows and moonlight, look up, search for the jewelry bathing in darkness, satellite hunger, remote control, the royal we, and find your own dark hand. What were the names of the towns we drove into and through, stunned, lost, having drunk our way up vineyards and then hot springs, boiling out the drunkenness? What were the names I slept through, my head on your thigh, hundreds of miles of blackness entering the car? All this darkness and stars. But now, under the Napa Valley night, a star arch of dashboard, the ripe grape moon, we are together. And I love this muscle. I love this muscle that tenses and joins the accelerator to my cheek. The linguistic war between men and women. And sometimes I think women in novels are too controlled by the adverb. As they depart, a perfume of description. She rose from the table and left her shoe behind, casually. Let's keep our minds clear, she said, drunkenly. The print hardly dry on words like that. My problem tonight is this landscape. Like the Sanskrit lover who sees breasts in the high clouds, testicles on the riverbed. The soldiers left their balls behind, crossing into Bangalore, she said mournfully. Every leaf bends. I can put my hand into various hollows. The dogs lick their way up the ditch, swallow the scent of whatever they eat. Always wanted to own a movie theater called The Moonlight. What's playing at the Moonlight? She asked, leafily. Men never trail away. They sweat adjective. She fell into his unexpected arms. He mixes a devious drink. He spills his maddened seed onto the lettuce. Real life. In real life, men talk about art, women judge men. In the Queen Street Tavern, 3 p.m., the only one busy is a waitress who reads a book a day. Hour of the afternoon soaps. Accusations which hide the trap door of tomorrow's guilt, men bursting into bedrooms, out of restaurants, everyone talks on the phones, to the lover's brother or the husband's mistress. My second beer, my 5th cigarette, the only thing more confusing, venomous than real life is this hour of the soaps where nobody smokes and nobody talks about art. I've woken in thick households all my life, but can nightmare myself into this future. Last spring I sat here Sunday morning as bachelor drunks came in, eyes in prayer to the Billy Graham show. The pastel bar, gray colors of the TV. This is where people come after the second failure of redemption. Ramon Fernandez, tell me, what port you bought that tattoo? Midnight dinner at the Vesta lunch. Here there is nothing I've taken from you. So I begin with memory, as old songs do, in this cafe against the night, in this villa refrain, where we collect the fragment no longer near us to make ourselves whole. Your bright eyes in a Greek bar, the way you wear your hat. Repetition of midnight. Every creature doth sleep but us and the fanatics. On this suburban street, the skateboarder rolls surrounded by the seeming hiss of electricity. Unlit, I see him through the trees up ptarmigan, a thick sweater for this September night. I am unable to make anything of this. Who are these words for? Even the dog curls away into himself, the only one to know your name. I write about you as if I own you, which I do not. As you can say of nothing, this is mine. When we rise, the last hug no longer belongs, is your fiction or my story, mulch for the future. Whether we pass through each other like pure arrows or fade into rumor, I write down now a fiction of your arm, or of that afternoon in Union Station when we both were lost, pain falling free, the speed of tears under the grand rotunda, as we disappeared, rose from each other. You and your arrow, taking just what you fled through. The Desire Under the Elms Motel. How I attempted seduction with a select and careful playing of the McGarrigle sisters. How you seduced me stereophonically, the laugh, the nose, ankle, nature, repartee, the knee, your sad determination, letters, the earring that falls. Hey love, you forgot your glove. Speaking to you this hour, these days when I have lost the feather of poetry, and the reins of separation surround us, talk, talk, like Go tablets. Everyone has learned to move carefully. Dancing, laughing, bad taste is a memory, a tableau behind trees of law. In the midst of love for you, my wife's suffering, anger in every direction, and the children wise as tough shrubs, but they are not tough. So I fear how anything can grow from this. All the wise blood poured from little cuts down into the sink. This hour it is not your body I want, but your quiet company. Dentists disguise their own bad teeth. Barbers go bald. Foolish birds travel to one particular tree. They pride themselves on focus. Poets cannot spell. Everyone claims abstinence. Reading Neruda to a class, reading his lovely old curiosity about all things, I'm told this is the first time in months I seem happy, jealous of his slide through complexity. All afternoon I keep stepping into his pocket, whispering, instruct and delight me. Kissing the stomach, kissing your scarred skin boat. History is what you've traveled on and take with you. We've each had our stomachs kissed by strangers to the other. And as for me, I bless everyone who kissed you here. All along the Mazniaw. Later, the osprey falling towards only what he sees. The messenger heron warning of our progress up Mud Lake. A paddle is stranger to what it heaves out of the way. Wherever you go within a silence is witnessed, touches. Everything aware of alteration but you. Creatures who veer, the torn leaf descending into marsh gas, into an ancient breath. In bony rapids, rock gazed up with the bright paint of previous canoes. But now you, Selah, with the clear river water heart, the rock who floats on her own deep reflection. Female rock, limb, holes of hunger we climb into and disappear. 1 hour in the arms of the Mazniaw. Those things we don't know we love harder. Tanned face, stern rock, the rock lolling, memorized by the Algonquin Mohawk lovers. Mineral eye. Oh yes, I saw your dear sisters too, before this afternoon's passion, those Depot Creek nights when they unpacked their breasts, serious and full of the fever of loon, for whoever stumbled, young, onto the August country waters. To a sad daughter. All night long the hockey pictures gaze down at you, sleeping in your tracksuit. Belligerent goalies are your ideal. Threats of being traded, cuts and wounds, all this pleases you. "Oh my God," he said at breakfast, reading the sports page over the Alpen as another player breaks his ankle or assaults the coach. When I thought of daughters, I wasn't expecting this, but I like this more. I like all your faults, even your purple moods when you retreat from everyone to sit in bed under a quilt. And when I say like, I mean, of course, love. But that embarrasses you. You who feel superior to black and white movies, coaxed for hours to see Casablanca, though you were moved by Creature from the Black Lagoon. One day I'll come swimming beside your ship, or someone will. And if you hear the siren, listen to it. For if you close your ears, only nothing happens. You will never change. I don't care if you risk your life to angry goalies, creatures with webbed feet. You can enter their caves and castles, their glass laboratories. Just don't be fooled by anyone but yourself. This is the first lecture I've given you. You're sweet 16, you said. I'd rather be your closest friend than your father. I'm not good at advice, you know that, but ride the ceremonies until they grow dark. Sometimes you are so busy discovering your friends, I ache with a loss, but that is greed. And sometimes I've gone into my purple world and lost you. One afternoon I stepped into your room. You were sitting at the desk where I now write this. Forsythia outside the window and sun spilled over you like a thick yellow miracle. As if another planet was coaxing you out of the house, all those possible worlds. And you, meanwhile, busy with mathematics. I cannot look at Forsythia now without loss or joy for you. You step delicately into the wild world, and your real prize will be the frantic search. Want everything. If you break going out, not in. How you live your life, I don't care, but I'll sell my arms for you, hold your secrets forever. If I speak of death, which you fear now greatly, it is without answers, except that each one we know is in our blood. Don't recall graves. Memory is permanent. Remember the afternoon's yellow suburban annunciation. Your goalie, in his frightening mask, dreams perhaps of gentleness. Translations of my postcards. The peacock means order. The fighting kangaroos mean madness. The oasis means I have struck water. Positioning of the stamp, the despot's head, horizontal or mounted policeman mean political danger. The false date means I am not where I should be. When I speak of the weather, I mean business. A blank postcard says, I am in the wilderness. A dog in San Francisco. Sitting in an empty house with a dog from the Mexican circus. Oh, Daisy embraces my only pleasure. Holding and hugging my friends, education, a wave of eucalyptus, warm granite. These are the things I have in my heart. heart and skills as nothing else. I usually don't like small dogs, but you, like Midwestern women, take over the air. You leap into the air and pivot, a diver going up. You are known to open the fridge and eat when you wish. You can roll down car windows and step out. You know when to get off the elevator. I always wanted to be a dog, but I hesitated, for I thought they lacked certain skills. Now I want to be a dog. Bessie Smith at Roy Thompson Hall. At first, she refused to sing. She had applied for the one concert that she was allowed each sabbatical to take place in Havana. Palms, oh pink walls, Cuba, she would hum to herself, dazzling within the clouds. But here she was, given the choice of 9 Honest Ed restaurants, and then hurried to Roy Thompson Hall, which certainly should never have been called that. A long brown dress with fringes, Fred Longshaw at the piano. She opened the first set with Kitchen Man. 5 people left. Al Neal had flown in from Vancouver on a tip. For the next 10 minutes, after people realized it really was Bessie Smith, the hall was filled with shouted requests. Any woman's blues, down in the dumps, until she said, I want to sing what I never was allowed to because I died. And she brought the rest of the 20th century under her wing. She wore wings. They raised themselves with her arms each time she coaxed a phrase. Her wings would float up and fall slow like a hand held out of a car coming down against the wind, the feathers black as a Steinway. You should have been there. During the intermission, the stunned audience just sat on their seats. She's looking good, was one of the common remarks. When she returned, she brought out the band. They were glad to have arrived on Earth, but they too had hoped for Havana. Abraham Wheat on soprano sax was there. Joe Smith on cornet was there. By midnight, her voice was even better. She talked more between songs. At 2 a.m., the band levitated. She used no microphone. Above us, banners waved and danced like a multitude. She took on and caressed the songs of Jerome Kern. She asked what happened to her friend Charlie Green, and then, to her surprise, to apologize for Toronto. Charlie Green was allowed to join her. He had been found frozen in a Harlem tenement, but now stepped forward shyly with his trombone, and now he and Joe Smith and Bessie Smith were alone on stage, the audience quiet, and the banners still, and the air conditioning holding its breath. They wheeled away the Steinway. They brought out an old upright decorated with bullet holes. Al Neal was asked to sit in. She sang, It Won't Be You. The encore was made up of 2 songs, Weeping Willow Blues and Faraway Blues. We stood like sudden wheat, but she could not hear us. She could not see us. Then she died again. Red Accordion, an Immigrant song. How you and I talked, casually and side by side, not even cold, at 4 a.m. New Year's morning, in a double outhouse in Blythe. Creak of trees and scrub snow. Was it dream or true memory, this casualness, this ease of talk after the long night of the previous year? Nothing important said, just as now the poem draws together such frail times. Art steps forward as accident, like a warm breeze from Brazil. This whispering, as if not to awaken what hibernates in firewood, as if not to disturb the blue night, the last memory of the year. So we sit within loose walls of the poem, you and I, our friends indoors, drunk on the homemade wine, all of us searching to discern ourselves, the gift we can give each other. Tell this landscape, or the one we came from. Polkas in a smoky midnight light. I stepped into this new year dancing with a small child, Rachel, so graceful we bowed when the dance was over. If I could paint this, I would. And if writing showed color and incident removed from time, we could be clear. The bleak view past the door is where we are, not what we have made here or become or brought like wolves, bringing food to a lair from another world. And this is magic. Raybird's 7-year-old wine, transformed, finally made good. I drank an early version years ago and passed out. Time collapses. The years, the intricate knowledge now of each other, makes love. A yard in its scrubbed snow, stacked wood, brindle in the moonlight, the red truck, a bare tree at the foot of the driveway, waving to heaven. A full moon the color of night kitchen. 10 yards away, a high bonfire, remembered from summer, lifts its redness above the farmhouse, and the lean figures of children circle to throw in sticks and arms off a Christmas tree, as a woman in long black hair, her left foot on a stump, plays a red accordion. And the others dance. Embracing or flinging themselves away from each other, they bow and they look up to full moon and white cold sky, and they move, even in this stilled painting. They talk a white breath at each other. Some appear more than once with different partners. We are immune to wind. Our boots pound down the frozen earth. Our children leap from and into our arms. All of us poised and inspired by music, friendship, self-made heat, and the knowledge each has chosen to come here, driven for hours over iced highways, to be here, bouncing and leaping, to a reel that carried itself generations ago north of the border, through lost towns, subtle among the strange names, and became eventually our own, all the way from Virginia. Birch bark, for George Wally. An hour after the storm on Birch Lake, the island bristles. Rock. Leaves still falling. At this time, in the hour after lightning, we release the canoes. Silence of water, purer than the silence of rock. A paddle touches itself. We move over blind mercury, feel the muscle within the river, the blade weave in dark water. Now each casual word is precisely chosen, passed from bow to stern as if leaning back to pass a canteen. There are echoes, repercussions of water. We are in absolute landscape among names that fold in onto themselves. To circle the island means witnessing the blue-gray dust of a heron released out of the trees. So the dialogue slides, nothing more than friendship, an old song we break into, not needing all the words. We are past naming the country. The reflections are never there without us, without the exhaustion of water and trees after storm.